Thank you very much to those that have joined today for our webinar, which is looking at why most marketing strategies fail and what to do about it. I'm not going to have all the answers for you, but I'm hoping over the next 40 minutes we'll give you some tools on what might be going wrong within your businesses and how you might be able to address it. We're going to have Q&A at the end, but please do ask questions as we go along. Interactivity is always good, and I will then know you're all listening and enjoying it. So feel free to jump in should you wish to. So let's get started. Before you start thinking about your strategy, you really need to think about what your relationship is like currently with your marketing. There's often reasons why marketing fails, and actually addressing that problem first is often the secret to actually being able to write your strategy and make sure that you've got a growth plan in place which delivers a pipeline that keeps delivering. Now, the 5 common reasons starts with no clear strategy or objectives. What happens is businesses just jump straight into campaigns. There isn't a strategy. There's no clear idea of what success looks like. There's just a need to do something. And that can often make it feel like it's random. It also means that ROI can't be measured because you don't know what you're measuring. Now, if you haven't got a strategy or a plan or know what it is success looks like, it's impossible to feel like it's working because you've got nothing to celebrate. So actually having clear objectives is critical before you start any form of growth plan or marketing plan. A strategy is a bit more complicated than that, and I'm going to talk you through over the course of the next 40 minutes how to start to build one. But the starting point is really being clear. Does your business currently have a proper strategy in place and proper KPIs in place? The second scenario why lots of businesses marketing doesn't work is because they're targeting the wrong audience. Most businesses would say they know who their customer base is. But when you start to ask some questions, a lot of businesses don't. They might have an idea, i.e. it's CTOs, it's electricians, it's a certain demographic within consumers. But actually knowing the persona in a lot more detail and having the insight you need to be able to write a strategy is fairly different. So what happens when you don't know your audience in detail is that it's a scattergun approach. It's a broad outreach, and often that means that you're not building segments. One way around this is to really think about your existing customers, maybe the last few customers that you secured, and really thinking about the ones which are kind of your gold nugget customers. All businesses have your steady eddies that you need, but who are the ones that are really profitable, that are really good, great to work with? You need to really understand them and then know how to target them. The result of not knowing that detail around your customer base is that you're going to get low engagement rates and poor conversion rates. Low engagement rates because you're not targeting the right people, or you may not even be targeting them at all, might be too broad stroke. And poor conversion rates because you don't know them enough to put the right messaging together. I'm often amazed how few businesses have marketing databases to market to that are up to date. Often companies have data which is crowded, it's messy, they're not sure how they got it, it's not GDPR compliant, so you're not going to get results from that type of data. If you don't know your personas in more detail, you don't know how to reach them, what channels they're on. So knowing your audience is really, really important. The third reason is lack of consistency and follow through. What happens is a lot of businesses will start to think about marketing when their business is starting to struggle. Either they're suddenly aware their pipeline isn't looking healthy, or one of their large clients is wobbling, or the retention rates aren't quite where they need to be, or if it's consumer business, online sales are dipping. That's when they start to think about marketing, and that's when the attention goes on to marketing, often when it's panic, and that panic goes on to the marketing person or team. Now, what will then happen is marketing will whirl into action and try and get some activity out of the door. And that may be successful. Now, things will start to stabilise. Either a lead will come in or the pipeline will stabilise, or the customer you thought was wobbling is fine, or you'll get an upsell, or something will change the dynamics and the pressure comes off marketing and it gets forgotten again. That's a real pain point for businesses. Or the other thing that happens is a lot of work will go into creating a campaign, but that campaign will then be abandoned after just a few weeks of execution, thinking it's become boring. What the result of this is you're not giving your strategy time to build, create momentum, especially if it's longer form marketing activities such as content or SEO. And if you are approaching your marketing at times of panic, you're not going to have the time to put the thought into what should work and what messaging is going to actually get the results. So lack of consistency and follow through is common scenario number 3. The fourth scenario is actually really painful for a lot of businesses, and that's when sales and marketing are not aligned. Often you have a real conflict within these two departments, and it should really be one. Salespeople see marketing people as fluffy and a little bit out of touch, and marketing people see salespeople as just a bit lazy and arrogant. Of course, neither of those things are true, but it does cause a real disconnect in those departments. And what happens is they stop championing each other, and actually there just becomes a tension between them. So sales aren't incentivized to follow up on marketing leads. They don't take them seriously. Marketing people stop hearing the impact that sales can have on their marketing plans. Now, if leads are generated but not followed up, it's impossible to get results. If feedback isn't shared, it's impossible to finesse your campaigns. And the result is that leads go cold or just are simply wasted. And of course, marketing gets blamed for poor quality. We'll talk about sales and marketing alignment in a little bit more detail later in the webinar, because that's actually a very important part of fixing problems in your marketing. And the fifth reason is underinvestment in creative or media. It's really worth thinking about an average order size your business may get, whether it's a product or a service, and thinking about the lifetime value of that customer and how much it's really worth. What a lot of businesses do is, because they're seeing marketing as a drain, an expense, a necessary evil even, it means they don't put an investment price against it. They don't see it as a growth engine within their business. And that means that marketing is done on the cheap and you get bad visuals, no testing, or just insufficient marketing execution. Now, that then means that businesses think the outcomes are just because marketing's not very good. But actually, it could well be because it's under-resourced, it hasn't been done properly, you haven't got the right skill set in place. The vehicle may have been right, the target may have been right, but how you're getting in front of those people could be wrong. So really think about that investment. There used to be a milestone, and this isn't just because it's Nutcracker, there used to be a milestone of 10% of business turnover was invested into marketing. Now, a lot of businesses probably can't imagine that, but it does give you an idea of the investment that businesses probably should make to have a sustainable pipeline and continually build their brands. So I think, as we can tell from those 5 common scenarios, marketing doesn't work is almost never the problem. You know, the problem lies in what are you not doing and what isn't being done well. And you can, if you go back through that checklist after this call and really think about your businesses, think about what bits or several bits are missing, and you'll see that your problem with your marketing is either with your strategy, your execution, your customer understanding, your alignment, or just expectations being unrealistic. But starting there is a really good starting point to fix what isn't working. But let's look closer at what happens in many businesses. There's often a feeling that bad marketing only happens in messy startups or small businesses. They're the ones that are too busy, can't get it right, and don't have time, budget for resource. Actually, it affects most businesses. I've been into lots of medium or larger medium-sized business just trying to chase that enterprise level, and actually they've got a really poor marketing function. Now, that happens for 2 reasons. One is that a lot of businesses have made their money from being a sales-led organisation. They may well have a really strong hunter, a really natural new business salesperson leading the business, and that's given a full sense of security as to how you can grow the business, and it catches up. I've never really known marketing to change so much as it has in the last 3 to 4 years. And, you know, I've been doing this for quite a while, so that's a long time. And I think the main change is how people select businesses to work with. The marketing buyer journey has changed, and actually people have often made a decision about whether to work with your business before your salesperson has even reached out. So if you are a sales-led organisation, you're now missing an important part of that pre-sales journey, which is going to get you the pipeline. The other reason why a lot of businesses don't have marketing function in place is because they've grown through referrals. And that's great, but the problem with growing through referrals is you're dependent on a very small pool of people. And if that changes, your business becomes vulnerable. And it will inevitably catch up with businesses where they just know if they haven't got a successful mechanism to bring and attract their own leads, they're vulnerable. And that's often the main reasons why businesses don't have a proper marketing function, because of one or two of those problems. There are also common marketing function scenarios which don't help your marketing succeed and can hinder your strategy. And often it's because most businesses see marketing as a cost. Your heart sinks, it's like, oh, marketing is such a drain on resources, it's just a cost. That's because your marketing isn't working. Marketing done well is a growth driver. It should be a key component to your team. And actually, you should see marketing in the same way as you see your best salesperson. If your marketing is working really, really well, they're facilitating the sales to come into the business. Often businesses have one person sitting within their marketing function expected to do everything. They're expected to be an incredible designer, an amazing wordsmith, an amazing strategist, a brilliant completer finisher, a fantastic project manager, and a brilliant community builder. I don't think I've ever met anybody in my career that can do all of those things. I can cover a lot of what Nutcracker offers, for example, but I can't design for toffee. So it's very rare for you to be able to find anybody that can do all of those functions. And then what does happen is that person naturally gravitates to the one part of marketing they feel competent in, which makes the situation even worse. Or you can have a small team that's just stretched too thin. You may have a busy event plan or a busy partner program. Well, actually, your marketing team's busy doing those functions. They're not thinking about growth campaigns, new business, lifetime value of your customer base. They're too busy thinking about the immediate here and now. That bigger picture thinking has been lost, which is not conducive to strategy. And more often than not in businesses, it's a to-do list. We post occasionally on social, we do some blogs, we do this. That's not a strategy, that's just activity. Without a commercial plan that's linked to clear growth milestones and metrics, you don't have a strategy. You just have some activity you think you should be covering off to help grow your businesses. And to put it into context, if you're a larger size business, you wouldn't expect a finance director to be running payroll, audit, forecasting, tax, bookkeeping, thinking about raising investment. But marketing is often treated that one person should do it all. So have a think about your current situation. What is the true skills that you currently have working on your marketing? Actually, before I move on from this, it's worth noting that it's also worth thinking about the skills that are needed for each of those functions. If you start to look at common setups we see, you'll often have one person that's supposedly building the brand, running PPC campaigns, writing content, implementing technical SEO, managing CRM. It's very, very, very unlikely that a person could be a brilliant brand strategist, also have the type of analytical brain that you need to be able to run PPC successfully and implement technical SEO, and have that different skill set to be able to write great copy, then have another skill set to be able to run and manage databases. You're using different parts of your brain and different functionality. It's impossible really for one person to be able to do all of those things. And what happens is we see activity happening, but there's no shared goal with sales. It's disjointed. People are working in silos. They're not working together towards that shared goal. And of course, there's no measurement of marketing's commercial output and impact. And without that, it's impossible to get people excited, to breed success, to think positively, and people get excited by what they're doing because there's nothing to celebrate. When there's nothing to celebrate, people get demotivated. It goes back into that mantra that marketing doesn't work. It makes people feel terrible. They do worse work. So actually, having something to celebrate is a really core component of starting to implement effective marketing strategy. Often budgets are allocated without agreed outcomes. You wouldn't ask a builder to come around to your house, quote for a £60,000 project, and then not expect to see a scope of work or what the outcome's going to be. Why do that with your marketing? You need to know exactly what you're spending your money on and what the expected return can be. While there are no guarantees, you can build in some pretty exciting key performance indicators, which will give you that insight into whether or not it's getting the results you need. Now, if you don't fix these things, what you get is a busy team with unclear ROI, wasted spend and slow growth. It's inevitable because there's not the right structure in place to start with. Now, at the moment, obviously AI is bringing opportunity, but it's also bringing more pressure. Now, 67% of small businesses, I'm surprised it's not higher actually, are now using AI tools for some aspects of content and SEO. And of course, the most widely one at the moment is ChatGPT. Now, interestingly, of the survey of these that was surveyed, 94% have said it improves content ROI. But if that's the case, why have only 61% said their overall marketing strategy works? What that 94% is probably saying is, thank goodness for that. This is making my job easier. I've got something at a click of a button. Thank goodness we can get more out the door. But the problem with that is AI amplifies what's broken. So if you don't know your audience to start with, you don't know enough about your customer base, you don't know enough about what you're selling and why, then you can't produce good content. It's also worth remembering that AI is inaccurate, but what happens when you actually start to use it regularly is you forget that. And without strategic focus, AI simply speeds up poor execution. And an over-reliance on AI makes people take that further step back. They're disconnected even more. And what you get is generic, forgettable content because there's a real disconnect. Often people then are assuming AI is the expert, so aren't really even taking a step back to think about what's being produced. And then what's happening is speed is replacing thinking. So you've already got not enough thought going into commercial growth and your marketing. You're then amplifying that by an over-reliance on AI, which is then just spitting out the same output as other people in your sector. Now, interestingly, Google is penalising this and actually is penalising businesses that are publishing AI-generated content. And I spoke to several business buyers, with senior business leaders who have big budgets, who say that if they see people that's trying to sell to them with ChatGPT generated LinkedIn posts, they just won't talk to them out of principle. Why? Because people want to feel you're going to make an effort. If you want to get their money, people want to feel that it's worth a bit of effort to get it. If it's just generated by AI, that effort goes, that connection goes, that trust goes. Alongside that, poor oversight can lead to compliance reputational risks. It's not a safe space. It's open to everybody. I'm seeing more and more people putting highly sensitive information into OpenAI. Can lead to compliance and reputational risks. You need to have an exceptionally robust AI strategy and understand the purpose. That's not to say AI can't bring some exciting productivity gains and it can't bring some fantastic shortcuts, but it can't replace strategic thinking. And that needs to be the starting point of everything. What it also brings is reactive strategy. I can just produce more. That stops becoming intentional. It removes the purpose, and it often means that tools are dictating actions because it can produce it rather than thinking about what is needed. AI can't do that data, can't pull data, it can't review things, it can't join up activity, it can't talk amongst departments and get people to follow up sales, it can't motivate people, it can't replace what's needed to build successful marketing teams. AI is a tool and it certainly is a substitute for strategic thinking, so thought needs to go into it. Now, with all this, with the rise in AI and the change in the way people process information, you've got a challenge on your hands with how you're really targeting your top of funnel activity to get interest in the first place. You know, you've got a saturated pool of content. People are permanently on their phones, scrolling. There's absolute fatigue. You've got AI-driven content saturation. You've got instant gratification. You know, we can't even wait a week for a series. We have to binge watch. People want things now. It's extremely hard to get someone to stop and give them your attention. People have become lazy. They don't want to have to read and find an answer. They want it instantly. So actually, that's why that emotional connection is even more important. In fact, 64% of consumers say shared values are a primary reason they connect with a brand. And it's not hard to understand that. You want to feel that emotional trust, that feeling of warmth that you're working with the right people, you're buying the right products. Now, that has to come from personalization, from human, authentic actions, whether that's content or outreach. It's got to feel human. Now, brands with clear strategy outperform competitors by 20 to 30% in long-term growth. Now, I would say that should be higher, but that was the best stat I could find, courtesy of McKinsey. But of course, it's just an average. Now, there'll be some people that are outperforming competitors significantly higher through a robust strategy. Interestingly, for those of you that have joined us today from B2B businesses, B2B companies with documented strategies are 313% more likely to report marketing success. And it's fairly straightforward why. With B2B, you often have a defined proposition, a defined audience, and a really strong reason as to why they should buy your product. If you start conveying that properly and targeting the right people, it's not hard to see why that would translate into leads. Strategic focus really is going to help you stand out. It's a saturated, crowded marketplace. It's ever changing with algorithms, and Google's forever changing what it's going to rank, what it isn't going to rank. Social media seems to be even more saturated. To stand out, you've got to put proper thought into this. It's got to feel exciting. You've got to feel different. Strategic focus will always give you efficiency in spend. Why? Because you're measuring what's working, what isn't, and you're really looking at your campaign deliveries, and you're working towards metrics. So you know if it's working or if it doesn't because you're reviewing that information. Commercial traction over time just builds and builds and builds. If you're repeating what's working, reducing what isn't, finessing and building on what's working, it's not hard to see why you very quickly have very successful pipelines building and a really happier business because that feast and famine is removed. So let's have a look at a little more detail. Now, here's some kind of fairly micro examples, but hopefully it'll give you a good idea of the shift in thinking that's needed to implement strategy. So if we take something like running LinkedIn ads, now a lot of people say, yeah, we run LinkedIn ads. Really, that shift in narrative needs to be, we generate demand from a clear segmented audience via the social media channel they use. What's the difference? You've thought about your audience, you've got a clear idea of who you want to sell to, who's buying from you, you've researched where they're spending time, you've put thought into it, and you've thought then about what messaging they're going to respond to because you've understood them and where they are. Very different to that feeling of almost, we're running a LinkedIn ads for CTOs. Well, it's pretty broad. We're working on SEO. That needs to change to, we rank for terms that will significantly increase traffic to our landing page, that will increase form fills and leads into our pipeline. One is just almost an activity going into a void. The other has a purpose. It's being done to increase traffic to landing page. What will you do? You'll measure that landing page. If form fills don't increase, what will you do? You'll try and find out why not. We post weekly. We nurture leads through the buyer journey. Social media has a wealth of information for your sales teams to follow up on. Those people that followed your page, those people that left those comments, they're the people that need to start being nurtured through the buyer journey. Strategy just links actively to commercial outcomes, and that shift in thinking is needed from everything you do, from what's the reason you're sending that email, why are you writing that copy, why are you hosting that customer success day. You've got to have purpose front of mind to achieve outcomes. Let's look a bit more at the numbers behind it. It's always interesting. I'm very surprised at this, but not the but only. 63% of businesses say they have a marketing strategy. Okay, encouraging, except for 61% of marketeers think it actually works. So it's cancelled it out. And that's because probably they don't have a strategy. They probably just have something they're hoping to do. 37% of marketing investment is wasted due to weak strategy, targeting or execution. Now, for those of you that may have bigger budgets, if you're spending £100,000 on your marketing, that's £37,000 wasted. For those of you where every penny counts and you're spending 10,000, that's 3,700. Huge chunk of your budget just wasted because you don't have the right strategy in place, which is affecting your targeting and execution. These are numbers that need to be taken really seriously. 40% of marketeers can't prove the ROI of digital spend. That's a real problem. If the people that are running this and are accountable for KPIs can't justify them, you know you've got a challenge in your marketing. 42% of B2B marketeers say strategy misalignment with sales is their biggest barrier to success. I would argue it's far higher, especially when you factor in the challenge that so many businesses have, that salespeople are now not picking up the phone. They're on their keyboards. They're looking mainly at account management. They're not being hunters. I'd say it's far higher. And you've got marketing people who are blindsided by vanity metrics and forget about what actually matters, which is this a potential prospect? Could this be commercially successful for my client? Sorry, for my business. Can't help but think about our lovely clients. So hopefully you've started to set the scene and you're starting to build a picture with your own businesses around why your marketing may not be performing the way it should. You may well have already identified some of the challenges that you're thinking about within your own businesses. But it's not all doom and gloom. Let me try and help with a framework. Now, it's impossible in this period of time to give you all you need, but this framework is a pretty robust framework, and we'll be emailing this framework to all of the attendees today. Now, you start with defining your business goals. Now, this is critical. It's the first point. You need to really understand, what do you need in order to succeed? How many customers do you need? What financial revenue do you need? What's your margin? No good getting 60 customers if you're making a loss. What's the lifetime value? What's the difference between a good lifetime value, a bad lifetime value? What's your close rates? Do you close 1 out of every 3 leads? Is it 1 out of every 100? You need to know this information to know what you need to achieve from your marketing. Get your business goals absolutely nailed down. Get input from sales, input from commercial leads, input, if you're not a business owner, from the business owner. Make sure those business goals are agreed before you start. Then you need to understand your best customers. You know, those customers where you just think, oh, if I had 10 of them, it'd be amazing. They're the customers you need to think about. What are their needs? What are their channels? What are their triggers? Why do they work with you? Why are they so great? Build your ideal customer profile. Really understand them. What sector are they in? What size is their business? Do they have other stakeholders that influence them? How do they look for information? Build that really strong persona of your ideal customer. If you don't know them, how can you target them? You have to know them. Once you've really understood your best customer, number 3 becomes a lot easier. You then need to craft and create this messaging that's really going to resonate with them, because you're going to answer their pain points, you're going to answer their needs because you know what they are. And this is where your why becomes so important, really understanding your value proposition. And that isn't a lengthy, waffly piece of prose. For example, Nutcracker's value proposition is, we help ambitious businesses secure more market share. That's what we do. We help businesses get more market share. What is it your business does? Really know what it is and why is it different from your competitors? Know your why, and then that makes it a lot easier to attract your best customers. Build a journey. Now, a lot of people say they know the marketing funnel, but most people don't really understand it. What you have to do to start with is get the interest of people that you want to work with and sell to. That interest is your starting point. But what you've got to do is see it as a suction. That sounds a bit creepy, but nevertheless, you've then got to really try and pull them through into the funnel. And to do that, you've now got to start giving proof. So you got their interested. Okay, you got my interest. I'm quite interested in you. But why? Give me something to go on. Give me your credentials. Tell me why I should trust you. Have you got the same values of me? Build that emotional connection. That's where all that kicks in. Then you then need to start reading your data. Very, very unlikely for a pretty little lead to come flying through the window, all packaged up beautifully with a gorgeous bow, saying, I'm ready to buy. You need to read that data. You need to see the buying signs. If you've got somebody actively on your website, opening your emails, on your social media, they're probably wanting to buy from you because people are too busy, especially if you're on B2B. You know, very rare for somebody to be on, say, for example, a contract packaging business unless they've got a need for it. So read your data, and then what you need to do is start to pass the baton to sales. You just share that data and say, right, now ready for outreach. So thinking of that as a suction that you're pulling people through, and what was the end result? A close, a sales close. But it doesn't stop there. That's where you then have a plan for your lifetime value, which is where your sales and marketing alignment still remains really important. Now, once you've done all that, you've got your business goals, you know your customers, you've got your right messaging, you know you've got your journey, you know how you're going to get people through. Now, this is the really important bit. You've got to measure and review. It hasn't stopped there. That's the start. You've got to look at what's driving pipeline, what's not, what's working, do more of it, what's not, do less of it, refine. It doesn't stop there. Strategy has to be refined and finessed all the time. Why? Because life changes, things change, new businesses pop up, competitors, you might lose a really valued member of the team, which loses a skill set. Dynamics change. You've got to be on top of what's working and what isn't. And of course, buyers change. People are getting to the stage where they can be like goldfish with their attention span. So knowing that it's changing is really, really important. Talking of which, you guys are bucking the trend of goldfish. So thank you for staying with me. So let's look a bit more closely at sales and marketing alignment. This is very close to my heart, and we actually do have programs to address this because it's a serious pain point in businesses. When you have a disconnect in your sales and marketing, it's one of the biggest costs to a business. Misalignment, quite frankly, is lost revenue and poor conversion rates. Why? Because the teams are not working together, or if it's just individuals, they're not working together. This is where you need to be really aware what skills you have within your business. You may have an incredible account manager on the sales team who is brilliant at making your customers feel valued, who's brilliant at keeping them. That doesn't mean they're a new business person. That doesn't mean they're able to take the baton from marketing and close them. It doesn't mean they're bad at their job. It's a different skill set. You may have a brilliant person that's great at running your event programs, but really doesn't understand how to generate leads. Check if you've got the right people in place to start with. If you have, build those gaps, unite them, get them pulling together in the same direction, cheering each other on. Success breeds success, giving people the confidence to know that if they win, give praise to the other people involved. When I go in and I do these sales and marketing alignment programs, and I know the salesperson is saying it was all me, 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 I know ultimately they're hiding a fear culture because they want to prove their worth. They're too scared to give praise in case it looks like they're not doing their jobs properly, or it's somehow someone else's praise. The marketing people is often disillusioned because they're saying we're trying so hard but nothing's followed up on, or it never seems to convert. Give praise where praise is due, and you will get more results, and you'll get more people doing better things. Only 30% of B2B marketeers say they work collaboratively with sales, but I'd love to meet that 30% because I'm meeting them every day that aren't. So there's 70% that are happy to say they're not working collaboratively with sales. Well, what's happening to that 70%? Leads aren't being followed up on, they're not getting the right input, they're not understanding the customers properly, they've got weak messaging and no chance of getting conversions because no one's following it up. Marketing can take it so far down that suction funnel, you need sales to convert it, unless, of course, it's a consumer purchase, which is driven by online sales. Aligned teams achieve 38% higher win rates. So think about your last 5 or last 2 sales. Now put 38% on your bottom line. Pretty interesting, isn't it? 36% higher customer retention. So what that means is not only are you putting more people in the top of your bucket all the time, you're sealing the bottom of it. So you're not just seeing that merry-go-round of feast and famine. 208% more marketing revenue contribution. Why? Because marketing is being followed up on, and it's got better messaging because it's listening to sales, and it's reading its data because it's celebrating successes and it wants that praise. Marketing people are often motivated by, doing a good job. Salespeople are motivated by financial targets and targets. Marketing people are often just really, really wanting to get results. Reward them, make them feel valued, make them feel good about what they're doing, and they'll want to do more. Make them feel they're doing a bad job, confidence dips, motivation dips, they do less, their job, they don't do such a good job. So what does this change if you get this right? You have shared goals and KPIs. Each is cheering the other one on and you're getting better output. You have unified message to market because your salesperson is your best person to verbalise your proposition and talk and listen to your clients. Your marketing team are the best people to put that into a message. So you're getting the right messaging going out that shows authenticity. What does authenticity build? Emotional trust and connection. So that's then becoming your value proposition and building that cosy, warm feeling around the why. You have smoother handover from lead to deal. The slower it takes for someone to follow up on a lead, the colder it gets. I haven't got the stats to hand, but it's like a really rapid reduction. If you've got a joined up sales and marketing team, the marketing person flags the lead, the salesperson's incentivized to follow up on it. Why? Because the marketing person's taking interest, they're a unified team, they're cheering each other on. Better customer experience is stronger lifetime value. You have to do less work if you keep your customers, let's face it. So Really, really important. And of course, you can then do richer work for your existing customers because long-term relationships builds that wonderful depth of relationships that gives you that insight you need. Sales enablement content and joint planning just makes marketing accountable for revenue, and that's what's needed. That accountability, that sense of ownership, that feeling that you're making a difference, you're becoming that part of that growth engine. Empower people to feel that way. Let's have a look at a couple of real examples. So live tiles were, I say were because they were acquired for a hideously large sum of money. Fiona, if you're on this, I haven't looked at the attendance list, you'll be laughing. But from a Swedish global brand, they were turning over 60 million, a global SaaS business. When we met them, they were struggling to get results from their digital marketing investments. They were doing lots of things. They had a typical to-do list, not a strategy. They didn't really know their customers inside out, and they didn't know their why. So what we did was, oh, can everyone else see the presentation? Ivan, I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure why you can't. I don't know if it's worth you leaving and rejoining. If anyone else can't see the presentation, please do flag now. As long as you're engaged with just me talking at you, Ivan, we'll send it to you afterwards, but I do apologise you can't see the slides. Daniela, perhaps you could message and I can carry on for the rest of the attendees. Thank you, Ivan. So what we did with Live Tiles was we identified where their weaknesses were. We looked at strengthening their strategy. So where were the holes? Didn't know the audience. What was their why? What made them different? And then what we then did was we rewrote it and we shifted their approach. Their approach was scattergun, it wasn't effective, the messaging wasn't authentic. So we rewrote the strategy. We optimized website copy for high intent keywords, we produced creative marketing, all joined up. When they were at an event with Gartner, we really thought about that messaging that resonated, and their stand was higher, had a higher footfall than their competitor, and they got triple the amount of leads based on a video we ran off the stand and handouts we did and their stand design. And they also had some really good people on the stand, but so did their competitors. It was their marketing that got that traffic. Now, what did it mean? It meant quality over quantity, removing poor work. That included 1,200 irrelevant pages on Google, which was really hurting their ability to be seen. Now, the result was we increased organic search-driven form submissions from pretty much, I think it was around 17, it was very, very poor, to 1,334 submissions a month. That's 1,334 leads that were divided up amongst their global sales teams. We increased website sessions by 67%, and importantly, secured several six-figure SQLs in just 8 months, of which I think it was 3 or 4 that closed. So it was a phenomenally successful turnaround campaign, all linked to clear goals, defined audience, and aligned delivery with sales. We worked so closely with the sales team. They were hungry, they wanted us to succeed. We were cheering them every step of the way. What did we get? Fantastic results. Let's look at a slightly different scenario. This was a data consultancy. They had disjointed marketing, distrust from sales to marketing, a real disalignment. Marketing was seen as a cost, a waste. Even the tones of voice changed when you spoke to marketing, which is why I haven't put what company it was. But between year end 2024 and year end 2025, sales accepted leads increased by 94%. That's from 70 to 136. And sales qualified leads, so these are people with active quotes out, tenders out by 188%. That was from 17 to 49, and that average deal size is between £500,000 and £1 million. Huge sum of money to increase. How do we do it? We introduced a marketing strategy that was aligned with their key services. Before they worked with us, they were just marketing as a collective opportunity. What we did was go delving into their business and look at that. What did they offer individual businesses? What aspect should they buy and why? We've really understood their customers, their buying journey, their key segments. And then we built the database and the messaging for those key segments. But because we were their outsourced marketing team, even though they're a fairly large business, we had the right team in place, the right skill sets. We had a strategist, we had a marketing implementer / manager, we had a content writer, a designer, we had a social media manager. We had all the skills needed to be able to build a really comprehensive growth engine. And it was phenomenal, the results we achieved. Very proud of that. But I guess all of this is all very well and good, but I've got bad news, I'm afraid. Strategy is not once and done. You haven't done it once and you can forget about it. But you may leave here, hopefully, feeling like it's been a worthwhile use of your time and you've learned something good about what you can do. So you may go away and put a strategy in place. You may want to talk to us about a brand strategy workshop or writing your strategy. But it's not done once once you've done that. 77% of marketeers say they rarely update their strategy once it's set. But what you've got to remember is things change. Markets shift, customer needs evolve, competitors change. What set you apart yesterday may change tomorrow. What gave you that advantage with your core customer may change. You need to evolve it. What marketing strategies worked 6 months ago may have stopped working. You may have no idea. You've got to every quarter sit down and review it. And you need to involve sales and your product or service delivery teams. Have they seen any changes with your existing customers, with your new prospects, with your accounts teams? Really understand the market and then update your strategy accordingly. And data is your best friend. Data is what tells you what's working, what isn't, what you need to do. It tells you everything. It tells you whether there's a problem with your marketing, a problem with your sales team, a problem with your customer success. It tells you with retention. But everything you need to know about your business is in your data. Use it, don't ignore it, look at it, and then feed it back and finesse your strategy to make sure it's up to date. So how do you keep this strategy alive? Well, you've always got to start by working backwards. And that means being on top of your revenue targets. Obviously, that changes too. Know how long it takes to close a customer. If you've got a long cycle of 12 months, you need to be working 12 months out. If it's a quick turnaround, again, you need to adjust your strategy accordingly. And how many sales do you need to hit those targets? And when do you need them to come in based on how long it takes to close and secure a customer? How many leads do you need to convert those sales? If your salesperson has 10 leads and only converts one, and you need to get 10 sales, you need to get a lot more leads than if it's a 2-to-1 conversion. You need to know your conversion rates to know how many leads you need to get. Then what you need is a deep understanding of customers, who they are, what they care about, and where they spend time. Is it a changing demographic? Is there a skill shortage? Are they stretched? Are they stressed? Are there challenges? Are they feeling under pressure from their competitors? Understand them, and then make sure that's reflected in your strategy. Have a clear differentiation from competitors. Why you? Why you over somebody else? And really bring your why. It's your why that gives that connection to your audience and builds that loyalty. Make sure it's in your strategy, written all over it. Communicate the why, demonstrate the why, make sure it's joined up everywhere. So take away 4 active elements to keep alive. What you must do is have your commercial targets set and tracked, have that clearly communicated so every single stakeholder involved in securing those targets knows what it is. No good your salesperson knowing and your marketing person not. No good your customer service team not knowing. Commercial targets need to be visual. Audience insight is always evolving. Make sure you understand it and know what that is. Messaging and delivery have to be tuned to results. You have to be sure that your messaging is working. You need to review it, you need to finesse it. And feedback loops are absolutely vital. It's a gift when someone gives you feedback. You need to know how you can improve, how you can get better, how you can get better results. Strategy really should lead every decision, not just from marketing, but across any business, any business function, not just guide a campaign. That should be the heart of why you're doing anything to get the results you need. So hopefully you guys are feeling a bit more of a clearer picture around common problems within marketing, why it doesn't work to start with, pressures you may be putting under existing functions, looking at where AI is playing in that, and then going forward into how to build that framework and then how to keep that framework going. But let's look around getting this right. What actually happens when you do get it right? Well, good marketing is split between brand building and lead generation. Good marketing doesn't forget either. Brand building is essential for long-term sustainability and long-term pipeline building. Lead generation is important for the short-term influx of leads, but actually both complement the other. Let's start with the brand first. So looking at strategy's impact on brand, consistency cannot be underrated. Our head of design I've worked with for many years in this recent format, I think about 15. Before that, probably going back over 25. She's banged on and on about consistency, and she's not wrong. Consistency builds trust. A well-defined brand strategy ensures your tone, visuals, and messaging aligned across all channels. What does that do? Builds trust, builds that emotional empathy that, I can trust these people, I know what to expect. is consistent. People do not like inconsistent. And the result, increases brand recognition by up to 3.5 times and improves perceived trustworthiness. You remember those gold nugget customers? Imagine multiplying them by 3.5 times. You're actually seeing you. It's very powerful. Impact positioning perception. Strategic positioning really clarifies how you're different and why you matter. That's fundamental to building your brand. Brands with clear positioning are 60% more likely to be chosen over competitors. Why? Because most of the buying starts at initial interest. They've already made their decisions before your salesperson's got to them. And if they've got the messaging right, you're showing you understand them. You're actually showing you're the right person to work with. So I'm surprised that 60% isn't even higher, but your competitors may be doing a good job too. So the third reason is emotional relevance drives loyalty. Don't underestimate the emotional connection with a purchase. Brand strategy that speaks to values and emotions builds lasting loyalty. Nobody wants to do business with with just a robot. No one does. So brands with emotional connections achieve 306% higher lifetime values per customers. It takes a long time to get somebody off of an Apple iPhone, takes a long time to get somebody not to wear Nike trainers. Once you've got that brand loyalty, it's very hard to shift it. It's no different in a business transaction. So really think about that brand loyalty. Now let's look at the leads. Why probably many of you have joined this is that lead need. Well, precise targeting improves lead quality. Hopefully you know why now, because without really knowing your audience segmentation, you can't market properly. So strategic audience segmentation leads to more qualified leads. It's not rocket science, but it's amazing how few businesses do it. Businesses that use buyer personas generate 2 times more leads and see 50% higher conversion rates. That's incredible. You're doubling your leads overnight just by doing the hard work of putting a persona together. If you don't know how to do it, we can help. We've got a fantastic session around building personas. The second is message market fit boost response rates. Now, what I mean by that is when messaging is aligned to customer pain points and the stage around that suction funnel, response rates increase. If you've attracted someone and they're really, really excited, but then you're not following through, they're going over to the next shiny thing. So think about what messaging you're giving at each stage of the sale. Companies with refined messaging see up to 5 times more engagement from campaigns. Now, with that 5 times engagement comes more opportunity to sell to them more leads. Channel optimization increases ROI. You've got to know where your customers are. You can't just do a scattergun approach. Strategic channel selection avoids wasted ad spend, but more importantly, focuses on high converting sources. And that's really, really important. You may just be spending money in the wrong place because you may have an unconscious bias. It may just be how you've always done it, or you may not have changed and understood your customers have changed. And the results, again, that right, is that lead generation campaigns guided by strategy see 43% lower cost per lead. Guess what? You get a lot more leads for your money if you can lower it by that amount. So let's have a look at some final thoughts. Hopefully we've established that tactics without strategy is a hell of a waste for building your brand reputation, a waste in building your pipelines. It's just a waste for motivated teams. It also will stop that panic of knowing your pipeline's decreasing, that fear of looking forward into quarters which don't feel very good. Strategy isn't static. It's a system. It's got to be reviewed. It's got to be evolved. It can't just be left. If it's left, you go back into those statistics where strategy is hurting your business, lack of strategy. Your strategy has got to answer, who are we? Why us? How do we grow? It's got to be aligned with your sales targets. It's got to be aligned with your commercial targets. So what are your next steps? I would urge you to audit your current strategy if you have one. Is it tactical or strategic? If you don't have one, you need to get one. You can do that with us, or if you've got the skills in-house, have a look at your frameworks, start working off that, or book a consultation with us to identify gaps. But really build a plan that really supports your commercial growth by following those steps, and you will get the benefits. So thank you so much for listening and staying part of the webinar. Really excited about this part. I really hope there are some Q&A, and do love to be asked a difficult question. So if anyone does have any questions, please pop it in the chat and Daniela will facilitate that.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenny. We actually had a few questions from people that couldn't attend. So if I start with the first one, it's what's the first step to building a marketing strategy if we've never done one before?
Okay, so I think the first step would obviously be to do a lot of fact finding, ask a lot of questions. You know, where is your business at right now? Not where you want it to be, where is it at right now? Doing a quick SWOT of your business, its strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats is probably the starting point. Then look at your skills you've got access to. Are they the right people? Can they deliver it? Then have a look at your numbers, understand your numbers really, really clearly. Get all those facts in place. What's your product or service? Is it robust? Where does it stand out amongst competitors? How's your brand currently sitting? Once you've got all of that, you can start to work through the framework. But you need to get all of that exploratory information in first. I know that person's not here to check I've answered, but do you think that was okay, Daniela?
I think it was great. Perfect. Thank you, Jenny.
All
And
good if
just
you
the
said
second
no.
one, before I go into Q&A to see if anyone else got any questions, how do you balance that long-term strategy with the quick wins of marketing?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I think that's a really, really interesting question. I think the first point of long term versus short term is really getting buy-in from the senior people in your business that need to be involved. There's got to be a genuine commitment, a genuine desire for it to work. And I think it's about breaking down long-term strategy into KPIs that show you're achieving success and some metrics. So, for example, if you know something's going to take 12 to 18 months, you can't wait for 12 to 18 months. You need to have KPIs that are going to get you to those 12 to 18 months. And then you need to review them each quarter. And I think with that long-term strategy, you still need to show you're making inroads. You still need to show you're making success. It can obviously be a lot more gratuitous to have that short injection of leads, but actually businesses that can have that long-term view are far more likely to achieve long-term success. But it's hard to do if you haven't got full buy-in, because you've got the people that have got those historical prejudices that marketing doesn't work, it's a waste of time, and they'd almost be waiting to almost say I told you so. So making sure you've got those metrics in place are really, really important. Does that help?
Definitely. I'm sure it will when I reach out to the person that can't be here. Has anyone else got any other questions? If they pipe them in the chat or in the Q&A, we can obviously, Jenny can answer them, or
Yeah, there's no
when you go
question
away.
too small, too silly. I love a question.
Perfect. So Brendan's messaging, we're a B2B organic search terms ranked 5 or 6 years ago, 50% better ranking keywords not show in AI. Any thoughts? You may want to read that because I think I might have stumbled it. Apologies, Brendan.
Okay. A B2B organisation ranked 5, 6 years ago. Okay, so Brendan, just to double check, have you found that you were doing better 5 or 6 years ago for those search terms and it's dropped by 50%? Just want to double check that. Yeah. Okay. So the reason for that is that there's been huge change for how Google ranks search terms. It's changed beyond recognition. Unless you've got a search specialist managing that, it's not surprising it's dropped off. In fact, you've done well not to make it drop off even further. It won't be shown in AI unless you've got an AI strategy in place, which is quite different from a traditional SEO strategy. So perhaps that's one for us to pick up. But I suspect when was the last time you did a SEO audit of your Brendan, it'd be interesting for us to pick this up because I suspect you need to do an SEO audit to really get a real feel for where your search is up to, because it's probably a very out of date strategy looking at that, and it's just ticking along. But why don't we have a quick chat and I can find out a bit more. I'd need to have a bit more details to help you, but I suspect it's an out of date strategy and probably hasn't kept up with the changes in how search has changed. A big change came through in March. In fact, we've got a guy claim the spotlight. Daniela, could you perhaps send Brendan a copy of that? Sure. Because there's a really useful chapter in there around this that may be useful, Brendan. But please do, let's put some time in the diary if that's of interest for us to talk in a bit more detail. Thank you. How to differentiate from advertising spend on Google Webinar Marketing Strategy? Okay, so advertising spend on Google or your web is your marketing plan. It's your execution. Okay, thank you, Brendan. I look forward to that. Sorry, so your advertising spend on Google and web is part of your strategy. Your strategy is how you're going to get from A to B, or I probably should say A to D, what happens in B and C is your plan. Your advertising spend on Google and web is part of achieving your strategy. So it's part of your strategy. Now, within your advertising spend on Google and wider, needs to be what messaging are you, going to put, what messaging are you going to give to them? How are you going to target them? How does that fit with your current offering? That's where your strategy is going to come in to support the advertising spend. But your advertising spend is part of your strategy. It's a component. Does that make sense, Adnan? Or is suspense? Well, Adnan's
Yeah.
Oh, good. If you want to talk it through in more detail, obviously please do reach out to me. Got time for another question. If anyone's got anything else they want to ask, please do ask away. Anything to do with marketing. What social media stand still and pivot on your current strategy? So I think that's a really good question. I think the stage where you need to pivot is when you're really tracking your KPIs properly and you're really looking at what's working, what isn't. That goes back into your data. Your data really is your best friend. If you're on top of your data, you'll naturally know when something has stopped working and you'll naturally know when you need to adapt and change. Also, that comes into having those really honest discussions with other functions in the company. That's that sales and marketing alignment. There may have been a shift in the sector, a fresh threat, or there may be something which is hurting your business without you really realising. So that comes back into your quarterly review meetings. So does that help, Maya? Disasters. Yes, there was only one company I can think of in 11 years where I actually just knew we weren't the right business for them. And what happened was, I don't know if Charlotte's on this, but she'll know who I'm talking about. The owner was very, very clever, but wasn't a commercial person, but exceptionally technical. And he felt that anything that wasn't a technical deep dive was somehow fluffy. And we tried to explain that you need different types of marketing at different stages of the marketing funnel. And actually, you need that top level interest, that real why, that really understanding people's pain points. You need that first. But he didn't think that was right, so we just kept putting out this really technical content, and it wasn't right, because the challenge with that type of approach is that if you have got a technical offering, it might be terribly clever, but that is secondary. What really matters is what business pain point are you solving? That's what your customers care about, not how you get there. And what this customer was doing of ours was he was just too busy flexing how clever they were, but actually his customers just needed to know, could he solve their problem? So actually we had to accept defeat on that one, because I just knew that if he kept just talking about all the technical, it wasn't going to attract the audience he was after. That needed to come far further down that funnel at the proof stage, and even then it needs to be targeted at the right level, because what you don't want to do is make your customers feel stupid. And if you know more than them, you don't want them to feel that way. There needs to be a comfortable mix of expertise versus patronizing. So actually getting that balance right is really, really important. So yeah, I'd say perhaps undervaluing that top of funnel interest and what marketing gets that interest is probably why that disaster happened. But luckily I can't think of many more. But thank you for getting me to air our dirty laundry, Steve, and I hope it was useful. Right, we've got a couple more minutes. Any other questions? Anything else anyone wants to ask? Give it one more second in case there's something to really put me on my toes. I'm always up for it. If not, I just want to say I hope that was valuable to those that joined us. I really appreciate you finding the time. I hope it's helped you think a little bit differently about your business and perhaps what it might need. If you do want to reach out to me, please do connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn, or drop me an email. I'd love to hear more about the challenges you might be facing. Always happy to have a consultation, have a quick chat, see if we can help. But thank you very, very much for joining us. I know that you'll be sent a link to transcript if you want to sit through my voice for all that time again. I always listen back and think I sound like Eliza Doolittle, but we'll park that one. And we'll make sure that we've mocked up that framework into a giveaway just for you guys to have. Really recommend looking at that quite closely. Should get you some good results if you can do it. But thank you very much for joining us. I hope it was really useful for you. Thank you.